Princess Zurathine of the Veltar Empire stood at the observation deck of the massive diplomatic vessel, watching the blue-green world of Earth grow larger through the crystalline viewport. Her silver skin shimmered with nervous energy, the bioluminescent patterns along her neck pulsing in shades of deep purple that betrayed her anxiety despite her composed exterior. The marriage alliance had been her father's idea. The Veltar Empire needed new trade partners, and these strange bipedal creatures called humans had proven surprisingly resourceful in their recent conflicts with the Krillian raiders. What better way to cement an alliance than through marriage to one of their military heroes? "Your Highness," came the melodic voice of her aide, Counselor Vexany, "we are receiving clearance to dock at their orbital station. The human delegation is waiting." Zarathine nodded, her four eyes focusing on different points of the approaching station. It was crewed by Veltar standards, all sharp angles and functional design, lacking the flowing organic curves that define proper architecture. Everything about these humans seemed rough and unrefined. "Tell me again about this Marcus Chun," she said, her voice carrying the harmonic undertones of her species. Vexani consulted his datapad, the holographic display casting blue light across his features. Age 32 by their solar cycles. A former soldier in their United Earth Defense Force. Distinguished service record during the asteroid mining conflicts and the Europa Independence War. Currently serves as a diplomatic attaché. No prior marriages, no offspring. The biographical data suggests he is unremarkable among his kind. Unremarkable, Zarathine repeated, a note of disappointment in her voice. Her father could have at least chosen someone impressive. The princess of the mighty Veltar Empire, whose fleets commanded respect across 3 spiral arms, was being married off to an ordinary human soldier turned diplomat. The docking procedure was surprisingly smooth. Human technology might look primitive, but it functioned efficiently. As Zarathine made her way through the diplomatic corridors, she noted the way human personnel stopped their work to watch her pass. Their single-eyed faces showed expressions she couldn't read, but their body language suggested a mixture of curiosity and nervousness. The reception chamber was modest by galactic standards, but the humans had clearly made an effort. Banners from both civilizations hung from the walls, and a small honor guard stood at attention. At the center of the room waited a group of human officials, and, among them, her future husband. Marcus Chun was not what she expected. Most humans she had seen in diplomatic footage were pale or dark-skinned, but Marcus had a warm, golden complexion that seemed to glow under the station's lighting. He was shorter than she was, as all humans were compared to the Veltar, but he carried himself with a quiet confidence that was immediately noticeable. His dark hair was neatly trimmed, and he wore the formal blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. What struck her most were his eyes. They were brown, warm, and seemed to hold depths that caught her off guard. When their gazes met, she felt something she hadn't expected, a flutter of genuine interest. "Your Highness," Marcus said, stepping forward with what she recognized as a human bow. His voice was steady, respectful, but not subservient. "Welcome to Unity Station. I am Marcus Chun." "Diplomat Chun," she replied, inclining her head in the formal greeting of her people. "I'm honored to meet you." The formal introductions continued with the usual diplomatic pleasantries. Ambassador Harrison spoke about the historic nature of the alliance, while Admiral Kozlov discussed mutual defense agreements. Through it all, Zarathine found herself stealing glances at Marcus. He participated in the conversations with quiet intelligence, offering insights that showed he understood both the political and military implications of their union. But there was something else about him, something she couldn't quite identify. He seemed so calm, so ordinary, and yet there was an undercurrent of something deeper. During the reception dinner, Marcus sat beside her, and she found herself surprised by his knowledge of Veltar culture. He had clearly studied their customs and spoke with genuine curiosity about her homeworld. "I understand your people can see in multiple spectrums simultaneously," he said, cutting his food with precise movements. That must give you a completely different perspective on the universe. It does, Zaradine admitted, finding herself relaxing for the first time since boarding the human station. Though I imagine your species has its own unique advantages. Marcus smiled, and something in that expression made her pulse quicken in a way that surprised her. We humans tend to be adaptable. Sometimes that's enough. As the evening progressed, Zaradine found herself increasingly intrigued by this quiet human who would soon be her husband. He seemed so harmless, so gentle, with his soft voice and careful mannerisms. There was nothing threatening about him, nothing that suggested the warrior background in his file. Perhaps this arrangement wouldn't be as disappointing as she had feared. Marcus Chun might be ordinary by human standards, but there is something about him that made her feel curious rather than resigned about their future together. She had no idea that behind those warm brown eyes lay depths that would soon reshape her understanding of what it meant to be human 3 months into their marriage. Zaradine had settled into a comfortable routine aboard the joint diplomatic vessel that served as their home. Marcus had proven to be an ideal husband by most standards, kind, attentive, and endlessly patient with her questions about human culture. Their living quarters were a blend of both their species' preferences, with the flowing curves she loved integrated seamlessly with the functional human design Marcus favored. What continued to puzzle her was how unremarkable he seemed. During diplomatic functions, other species representatives barely acknowledged his presence, focusing their attention on her royal status instead. Marcus never seemed bothered by this treatment, content to observe from the background while she conducted formal negotiations. "Don't you find it frustrating?" she asked one evening as they shared dinner in their private quarters. The meal was a fusion creation that had become one of their small traditions, human ingredients prepared using Veltar culinary techniques. "Find what frustrating?" Marcus asked, looking up from his plate with that same gentle expression he always wore. "Being overlooked, dismissed. Today, Ambassador Krextal from the Hegemony spoke to you as if you were my servant rather than my husband, and an equal representative of Earth." Marcus set down his fork and considered her question with the same careful thought he applied to everything. "Being underestimated can be an advantage, Zara. People reveal more when they don't think you matter." She studied his face, noting again how those brown eyes seemed to hold more depth than they should. "You sound like you have experience with that." "Some," he admitted with a small smile. "Your turn to answer question. Why did you agree to this marriage? Your father could have arranged an alliance without requiring you to leave your homeworld." Zaradine was quiet for a long moment, her bioluminescent patterns shifting to a soft blue that Marcus had learned indicated contemplation. "Because I wanted to matter. On Veltar Prime, I was just another princess among dozens. Here, with you, I feel like I'm actually accomplishing something important." "You are accomplishing something important," Marcus said, reaching across the table to take her hand. The gesture still surprised her. Physical contact was more formal among her people, but she had grown to appreciate the human custom. "These trade agreements you're negotiating will improve life for billions of people." The next few weeks brought an unexpected test of their relationship. The notorious Sindek pirates have been raiding shipping lanes near human space, and a Veltar merchant vessel had been attacked. The incident threatened to derail the carefully constructed alliance, with some Veltar nobles claiming the humans were incapable of protecting their partners. Zaradine found herself in increasingly tense negotiations with her own people. Ambassador Threxenel, her father's personal representative, had arrived on their vessel to assess the situation personally. The imposing Veltar male made no effort to hide his disapproval of the human alliance. "Princess," Threxenel said during a private meeting, his harmonic voice carrying undertones of disdain, "perhaps it is time to reconsider this arrangement. These humans cannot even secure their own trade routes, and your husband contributes nothing to these discussions." Zaradine glanced at Marcus, who sat quietly in the corner of the conference room, reviewing data on a tablet. He hadn't spoken during the entire 3-hour session, content to let her handle the diplomatic aspects. "Marcus has valuable insights," she said, though even she wondered why he never shared them publicly. Does he? Threxanael's four eyes focused on Marcus with obvious skepticism. Tell me, human, what would you do about these pirate raids? Marcus looked up from his tablet, meeting the ambassador's gaze with calm composure. I would need more information before making recommendations, Ambassador. You see, Threxanael's patterns flashed contemptuous yellow, evasive and weak. This is what the mighty human military offers. That evening, Zarathine found Marcus on the observation deck, staring out at the stars with an expression she couldn't read. The view showed the distant nebula where the latest pirate attack had occurred, its colorful gases creating a deceptively beautiful backdrop for violence. You could have defended yourself today, she said, joining him at the viewport. Threxanael was deliberately insulting you. I know. Then, why didn't you say anything? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, and when he finally spoke, his voice carried something she had never heard before, a cold edge that made her shiver despite the controlled environment. Because some conversations aren't worth having with people like him. What do you mean? Your ambassador thinks humans are weak because we don't posture and threaten like many species do. He mistakes quietness for helplessness. Marcus turned to face her, and for just a moment, something flickered in his brown eyes that made her take a step back. He's about to learn the difference. Before she could ask what he meant, Marcus's personal communication device chimed. He glanced at it, and that strange expression disappeared, replaced by his usual gentle demeanor. I need to send some messages, he said, kissing her forehead in the affectionate human gesture she had come to love. Don't wait up for me. As he left, Zarathine remained at the viewport, staring at her reflection in the transparent aluminum. For just a moment, she had seen something in her husband that she couldn't identify, something that made her wonder if there was much more to Marcus Chun than anyone realized. Over the next few days, she noticed small changes. Marcus received more encrypted communications than usual, and twice she caught him in conversations that ended abruptly when she entered the room. He was still kind and attentive, but there was an undercurrent of focused energy that she had never sensed before. When Ambassador Threxanael announced his intention to recommend terminating the alliance, Zarathine felt her heart sink. 3 months of careful work, of growing to care for this strange, gentle human, and it might all be for nothing. Perhaps, Marcus said quietly during the formal session where Threxanael would deliver his recommendation. The ambassador should wait another day before making his final decision. And why would I do that? Threxanael asked with obvious irritation. The first sign that something had changed came 12 hours later when emergency broadcasts began flooding subspace communications across the sector. The notorious Sindek pirate fleet, which had terrorized shipping lanes for over 2 years, had been completely destroyed in a coordinated strike that lasted less than 6 hours. Zarathine sat in the communication center, watching the reports with growing amazement. 7 pirate strongholds simultaneously hit by precision attacks. 12 major vessels eliminated without a single distress signal being sent. The most heavily defended pirate base in the sector reduced to debris in what witnesses described as a perfectly orchestrated assault. How is this possible? Ambassador Threxanael demanded, his silver skin flickering with agitated orange patterns. The combined fleet has been trying to locate these pirates for years. How did the humans find them all at once? Captain Rodriguez of the human naval contingent was fielding questions from a dozen different species representatives. I'm afraid I don't have complete details yet, Ambassador. The operation was conducted by a specialized task force. What kind of task force? Threxanael pressed. Captain Rodriguez glanced briefly at Marcus, who sat quietly in the back of the room. A very effective one. Zarathine noticed the exchange and felt something cold settle in her stomach. She looked at her husband, but his expression remained neutral, almost bored. Yet there was something in his posture, a subtle alertness that she was beginning to recognize. Over the following days, more details emerged through intelligence channels and survivor accounts. The attacks had been carried out with surgical precision by ships that appeared on no official registry. The pirate vessels had been disabled first, their crews evacuated to life pods, and then the ships themselves methodically destroyed. The strongholds had been cleared with minimal casualties among captured civilians, while the pirates themselves had simply vanished. It was like they knew everything about us. One captured pirate admitted during interrogation footage that somehow made its way to the diplomatic vessel. They knew our schedules, our codes, our defenses. They knew things that only someone on the inside could have known. That evening, Zaradine found Marcus in their quarters, reading what appeared to be a routine diplomatic brief. She had been watching him carefully for days, looking for any sign that he was involved in the sudden resolution of their crisis. "Marcus," she said, settling beside him on their shared sleeping platform, "were you involved in the pirate raids?" "Which pirate raids?" he asked without looking up from his reading. "The attacks that destroyed the Sindek fleet." Now he did look at her, with those calm brown eyes that she was beginning to suspect saw much more than they revealed. "Why would you think that?" "Because the timing was perfect. Because you knew it was going to happen before it did. Because—" She paused, struggling to articulate the feeling that had been growing stronger each day. "Because there's something about you that you're not telling me." Marcus set aside his reader and turned to face her fully. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other, and Zaradine felt like she was seeing her husband clearly for the first time. "What do you know about human military structure?" he asked finally. "The basics. You have regular forces, specialized units, intelligence services. And above those, you have units that don't officially exist. Groups that handle problems too sensitive for a conventional military response." His voice was still gentle, but there was steel underneath it now. "I told you I was a diplomatic attaché. I never said that was my only job." Zaradine felt her patterns shift to the pale blue of shock. "You're a spy?" "I'm a problem solver," Marcus corrected. "When conventional diplomacy fails, and military action would cause more problems than it solves, people like me find alternative solutions." "People like you?" Marcus stood and moved to their private communication console, inputting a code that Zaradine had never seen him use. The display activated, showing a file marked with security classifications she didn't recognize. Her 4 eyes tracked across the information, trying to process what she was seeing. "Marcus Chun, Colonel, Human Intelligence Special Operations. Specialized in deep cover infiltration and asset elimination. 47 confirmed solo operations. 0 mission failures." The man she had married, the gentle diplomat who brought her flowers and listened patiently to her concerns about trade regulations, was one of Earth's most dangerous operatives. "The Sindek pirates," she whispered, "have been under surveillance for months. We knew their locations, their capabilities, their plans. We were waiting for the right moment to move." Marcus closed the file and turned back to her. "Your marriage to me was never about some ordinary diplomatic attaché, Zara. Your father specifically requested Earth's best operative. He wanted to ensure his daughter was protected, and he wanted to send a message about human capabilities." "My father knew?" "Your father is a very intelligent leader. He understood that the Veltar Empire needed allies who could do more than just trade and shake hands at diplomatic functions. The galaxy is more dangerous than most people realize, and conventional military responses aren't always possible." Zaradine felt the room spinning around her. Everything she thought she understood about their relationship, about Marcus himself, had been built on incomplete information. Was any of it real? "Our marriage, your feelings." Marcus moved to sit beside her again, taking her hands in his. This time, the gentle touch felt different, charged with the knowledge of what those hands were capable of. "Every moment has been real," he said, and she could hear absolute sincerity in his voice. "I volunteered for this assignment, Zara. When the proposal came through official channels, I requested to be considered. Not because I was ordered to, but because I wanted to meet the princess who was brave enough to leave everything she knew to build something better. You volunteer to marry me? I volunteered for the chance to marry you. The difference matters." His brown eyes held hers steadily. "The operation against the pirates was necessary regardless of our marriage. But doing it to protect you, to secure our future together, that gave it a different meaning for me. Ambassador Threxenel's harsh laughter echoed from the corridor outside their quarters, and Zaradine realized he was probably discussing his report with his staff. The report that would recommend ending the human alliance because Earth couldn't protect its partners. Threxenel still plans to recommend terminating our alliance, she said. Marcus smiled, and for the first time since she had known him, the expression carried a predatory edge that made her shiver. Ambassador Threxenel is about to receive some very interesting intelligence briefings. Information that will help him understand exactly what kind of protection the human alliance provides. Looking at her husband now, seeing the lethal competence hidden behind his gentle demeanor, Zaradine finally understood what she had sensed but couldn't identify. Marcus Chin wasn't just kind and patient and intelligent. He was dangerous in ways that most beings couldn't comprehend, and he had chosen to use that danger to protect her and their shared future. The revelation about Marcus's true nature changed everything for Zaradine, but not in the way she had expected. Instead of feeling betrayed or frightened, she found herself fascinated by the complexity of the man she had married. The gentle diplomat who remembered her preferences for morning beverages was the same person who had orchestrated the destruction of an entire pirate fleet without leaving a single trace of human involvement. Over the next few days, she began noticing details that had previously escaped her attention. The way Marcus always positioned himself with clear sight lines to all entrances when they enter a room. How his seemingly casual questions during diplomatic receptions actually gathered precise intelligence about other species' military capabilities and political tensions. The fact that he never seemed surprised by anything, as if he already knew information that wouldn't reach official channels for days. "How long have you been watching me?" she asked one morning as they shared breakfast in their quarters. Marcus looked up from his coffee, that familiar, gentle expression on his face. "What do you mean? Before our marriage? How much did you know about me personally?" "Everything that was available through official channels. Academic records, diplomatic training, psychological profiles prepared by your father's advisors." He paused, then added with a slight smile, "Nothing about the way you hum when you're concentrating or how you always touch your throat when you're nervous. Those aren't in any file. No, those I learned by falling in love with you." Ambassador Threxenel's promised intelligence briefings arrived that afternoon. Zaradine watched her father's representative review the classified materials, his silver skin gradually shifting from dismissive yellow to shocked white as he absorbed the implications. The files detailed human military capabilities that had never been publicly acknowledged, stealth technology that rendered ships invisible to conventional sensors, weapons systems that could disable entire fleets without permanent damage, intelligence networks that penetrated every major criminal organization in 3 sectors. Most disturbing to Threxenel was the casualty report from the Sindek operation. 0 civilian deaths, 93% of pirates captured alive and turned over to appropriate authorities, complete recovery of stolen goods from 17 different species. "This level of precision is impossible," Threxenel declared during the private session where Marcus finally revealed his operational history. "No species achieves this kind of surgical accuracy in military operations. Most species don't need to," Marcus replied calmly. "Humans developed these capabilities out of necessity. We're physically weaker than most spacefaring races. Our technology started behind everyone else's, and we had to find ways to compensate. We became very good at fighting smart instead of fighting hard." "Fighting smart," Threxenel repeated, his 4 eyes focusing on Marcus with new assessment. "By infiltrating and deceiving. By understanding our opponents better than they understand themselves," Marcus corrected. The Sindek pirates thought they were untouchable because they had stayed ahead of conventional military responses. They never considered that someone might spend 2 years infiltrating their organization, learning their routines, identifying their weaknesses, and then eliminating them with minimal collateral damage. Zaradine felt something cold and proud settle in her chest as she watched her husband calmly explain capabilities that clearly terrified one of the Veltar Empire's most experienced diplomats. This was her Marcus, she realized. Not the dangerous operative or the gentle husband, but both aspects integrated into someone far more complex than she had imagined. "How many of you are there?" Threxanel asked quietly. "Enough," Marcus said simply. That night, after Threxanel had retired to consider his report, Zarathine found herself studying Marcus with new eyes. They were in their shared quarters, and he was performing his usual evening routine, reviewing intelligence summaries that arrived through encrypted channels, updating personal logs, maintaining the small collection of earth plants he had brought to make their space feel more like home. "Are you afraid of me now?" he asked without looking up from the small tomato plant he was tending. "No," she said, and realized she meant it. "Should I be? I would never hurt you, Zura. Not you. Not your people. Not anyone under your protection." He set down the plant nutrients and turned to face her. "But I want you to understand what you're married to. What Earth brings to this alliance. We don't just offer trade agreements and cultural exchange. We offer protection that very few beings in the galaxy can provide or counter. You're telling me this because Threxanael needs to understand. I'm telling you this because you deserve to know who your husband really is. And because what happens next might require you to make some difficult choices." Before she could ask what he meant, their communication system chimed with an incoming priority message. Marcus activated the display, and Zarathine recognized the insignia of her father's personal staff. "Princess Zarathine," came the familiar harmonics of Royal Secretary Vraltine. "His Majesty requires your immediate return to Veltar Prime. A situation has developed that requires your personal attention." Marcus was already moving toward their private communication console, his movements taking on a precision and economy that she now recognized as his operational mode. "What kind of situation?" he asked. "I'm sorry, but this communication is for the princess only. The matter is classified beyond your clearance level, Attaché Chun." Zarathine saw something flicker across Marcus's face. Not anger, but a cold calculation that made her suddenly grateful she was on his side. "Secretary Vraltine," she said, "my husband has full access to all matters concerning our alliance. Please provide complete details." There was a pause before Vraltine continued, clearly uncomfortable. "Princess, there have been threats made against your father by the Hegemony Council. They claim the human alliance represents a dangerous shift in galactic power balance. Certain hegemony members are demanding that the alliance be terminated, by force if necessary. They're threatening war against the Veltar Empire?" Zarathine asked, her patterns shifting to alarmed silver. "They're threatening war against Earth," Marcus said quietly, studying information that was flowing across his personal display faster than Zarathine could read. "The hegemony thinks humans are a weak link they can exploit to pressure your father into abandoning the alliance." "How could you possibly know that?" "Vdantin demandet." Marcus looked at the communication display with an expression that Zarathine was beginning to understand meant someone had made a very serious mistake. "Because 3 hegemony battle groups are currently moving toward human space, and our long-range sensors detected them 6 hours ago. That's classified hegemony fleet movement data." "Yes, it is." Marcus's voice carried a tone that made Zarathine shiver despite the controlled environment. "The question is, Secretary Vraltine, whether your emperor wants to find out what happens when someone threatens human territory while a human operative's wife is potentially in danger." The crisis escalated faster than anyone had anticipated. Within hours of Secretary Vraltine's communication, reports began flooding in from across the sector. Hegemony forces weren't just moving toward human space. They were actively blockading Veltar trade routes, demanding that Emperor Zarthal dissolve the alliance immediately or face complete economic isolation. Zarathine found herself in a unique position of being both a diplomatic asset and a potential target. If the hegemony could capture or eliminate her, they would strike a devastating blow against both the alliance and her father's political standing. "We need to get you to safety," Marcus said, his operational persona now fully engaged. Their quarters had been transformed into a command center, with tactical displays showing fleet movements and threat assessments across 3-star systems. "I'm not running away," Zaradine replied firmly. "My people need to see that their princess doesn't abandon her allies when things become difficult. Your people need their princess alive." Marcus's voice carried an edge she had never heard before. "The hegemony isn't planning to capture you for political leverage, Zara. They're planning to make an example." "How do you know that?" Marcus activated a recording that made her blood freeze. Hegemony Chancellor Vrexmol's voice filled their quarters, speaking to what was obviously a closed council session. The alien princess and her pet human represent everything wrong with current galactic politics. Their elimination would send a clear message about the consequences of destabilizing alliances. "Where did you get this?" Zaradine whispered. "Human intelligence has been monitoring hegemony communications for months. We knew they were planning something, but the timing caught us off guard." Marcus was inputting commands faster than she could follow. "I'm calling in emergency protocols." "What kind of protocols?" "The kind that officially don't exist." Over the next 6 hours, Zaradine watched her gentle husband coordinate a response that redefined her understanding of human capabilities. Ships that didn't appear on any registry began reporting readiness status. Intelligence assets embedded throughout the hegemony started transmitting real-time updates on military positions and political maneuvering. Most impressively, Marcus somehow arranged for Emperor Zarthal to receive detailed intelligence about hegemony war plans before the hegemony's own field commanders had been briefed. "How many operatives like you does Earth actually have?" she asked as reports continued streaming in from sources across the galaxy. "Enough to make threatening humanity a very expensive mistake," Marcus replied without looking up from his displays. "But this isn't just about protecting Earth anymore, Zara. This is about protecting our alliance, our future, and you specifically." The first sign that the hegemony had underestimated human capabilities came when Chancellor Vrexmol's private yacht, supposedly in a secure system guarded by an entire battle group, suffered a catastrophic communications failure that broadcast his private war plans across every diplomatic channel in the sector. The transmission included detailed evidence of planned atrocities against civilian populations and illegal weapons testing on captured prisoners. "Technical malfunction," Marcus said blandly when Ambassador Threxanel demanded an explanation for how such classified information could have been compromised. "A very convenient malfunction," Threxanel observed. "Human technology can be unpredictable." The second sign came when 3 separate hegemony commanders found their personal files leaked to their own subordinates, revealing years of corruption, war profiteering, and illegal experimentation. The leaks caused internal revolts that effectively neutralized half of the force moving against human space. "More technical difficulties?" Zaradine asked, finding herself simultaneously impressed and slightly terrified by the scope of her husband's capabilities. "Information systems are complex things," Marcus said with that mild expression that she now knew meant he was being extremely dangerous. "Sometimes data ends up in unexpected places." The final demonstration of human capabilities came when the remaining hegemony battle group found their approach to Earth's outer colonies blocked by what appeared to be empty space. Sensors showed nothing, but when the lead ships tried to advance, they collided with invisible barriers that held them completely motionless. "Stealth defense platforms," Marcus explained to the emergency session that included representatives from 6 different species. "Deployed months ago, just in case someone decided to test human resolve." "How many?" Admiral Krextull from the Galactic Defense Consortium asked, his voice tight with concern. "Classified," Marcus replied, "but enough to protect everything we consider important." Chancellor Vrexmol's attempted invasion collapsed entirely when his remaining forces discovered that their own weapons systems had been compromised. Every ship in the hegemony fleet found their targeting computers mysteriously malfunctioning, their communications filled with feedback loops, and their navigation systems displaying humorous messages in perfect hegemony dialect. "Did you do all of this?" Zarathine asked that evening as news reports confirmed the complete failure of the hegemony's military action. "I coordinated some of it," Marcus admitted. "But this was a team effort. Earth has been preparing for this kind of challenge for decades. We just never had a reason to demonstrate our full capabilities before, because no one had threatened something that mattered to you personally." Marcus turned to face her, and she saw in his brown eyes the same warmth and love that had drawn her to him from their first meeting. But now she also saw the steel underneath, the absolute determination that made him one of the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. "You matter to me, Zara. Our alliance matters. The future we're building together matters." He took her hands in his, and she marveled at how those gentle fingers had just orchestrated the defeat of one of the galaxy's most powerful military forces. "I told you once that humans are adaptable. What I didn't mention is that we're also very, very protective of the people we love." 6 months later, as Zarathine stood before the Galactic Council to formalize the expanded Earth-Veltar alliance, she reflected on how much her life had changed. The hegemony had been forced to pay massive reparations for their unprovoked aggression. Chancellor Vrexmol had been removed from power by his own people, and 36 species had requested similar protective agreements with Earth. Marcus stood beside her during the ceremony, looking exactly like the mild-mannered diplomatic attaché he had pretended to be when they first met. But now she knew the truth. Behind those warm brown eyes lay the mind of someone who could protect entire civilizations, and he had chosen to use that incredible capability to protect her and the future they were building together. "Do you regret learning the truth about me?" Marcus asked quietly as they watched the formal signing of documents that would reshape galactic politics. Zarathine looked at her husband, spy, protector, and the most dangerous man in several star systems, and smiled. "I regret that it took me 3 months to realize that the most interesting person in the galaxy had married me." "The most interesting person in the galaxy is standing right next to me," Marcus replied, squeezing her hand. "I'm just very good at keeping her safe." As diplomatic representatives from across the galaxy applauded the historic alliance, Zarathine finally understood what it truly meant to be married to a human. They might look harmless and gentle, but when something they loved was threatened, they became the most formidable force in the universe. And she was very grateful to be on their side. Princess Zarathine of the Veltar Empire stood at the observation deck of the massive diplomatic vessel, watching the blue-green world of Earth grow larger through the crystalline viewport. Her silver skin shimmered with nervous energy, the bioluminescent patterns along her neck pulsing in shades of deep purple that betrayed her anxiety despite her composed exterior. The marriage alliance had been her father's idea. The Veltar Empire needed new trade partners, and these strange bipedal creatures called humans had proven surprisingly resourceful in their recent conflicts with the Krillian raiders. What better way to cement an alliance than through marriage to one of their military heroes? "Your Highness," came the melodic voice of her aide, Counselor Vexany, "we are receiving clearance to dock at their orbital station. The human delegation is waiting." Zarathine nodded, her 4 eyes focusing on different points of the approaching station. It was crewed by Veltar standards, all sharp angles and functional design, lacking the flowing organic curves that define proper architecture. Everything about these humans seemed rough and unrefined. "Tell me again about this Marcus Chun," she said, her voice carrying the harmonic undertones of her species. Vexani consulted his datapad, the holographic display casting blue light across his features. Age 32 by their solar cycles. A former soldier in their United Earth Defense Force. Distinguished service record during the asteroid mining conflicts and the Europa Independence War. Currently serves as a diplomatic attaché. No prior marriages, no offspring. The biographical data suggests he is unremarkable among his kind. Unremarkable, Zarathine repeated, a note of disappointment in her voice. Her father could have at least chosen someone impressive. The princess of the mighty Veltar Empire, whose fleets commanded respect across 3 spiral arms, was being married off to an ordinary human soldier turned diplomat. The docking procedure was surprisingly smooth. Human technology might look primitive, but it functioned efficiently. As Zaradine made her way through the diplomatic corridors, she noted the way human personnel stopped their work to watch her pass. Their single-eyed faces showed expressions she couldn't read, but their body language suggested a mixture of curiosity and nervousness. The reception chamber was modest by galactic standards, but the humans had clearly made an effort. Banners from both civilizations hung from the walls, and a small honor guard stood at attention. At the center of the room waited a group of human officials, and, among them, her future husband. Marcus Chun was not what she expected. Most humans she had seen in diplomatic footage were pale or dark-skinned, but Marcus had a warm, golden complexion that seemed to glow under the station's lighting. He was shorter than she was, as all humans were compared to the Veltar, but he carried himself with a quiet confidence that was immediately noticeable. His dark hair was neatly trimmed, and he wore the formal blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. What struck her most were his eyes. They were brown, warm, and seemed to hold depths that caught her off guard. When their gazes met, she felt something she hadn't expected, a flutter of genuine interest. "Your Highness," Marcus said, stepping forward with what she recognized as a human bow. His voice was steady, respectful, but not subservient. "Welcome to Unity Station. I am Marcus Chun." "Diplomat Chun," she replied, inclining her head in the formal greeting of her people. "I'm honored to meet you." The formal introductions continued with the usual diplomatic pleasantries. Ambassador Harrison spoke about the historic nature of the alliance, while Admiral Kozlov discussed mutual defense agreements. Through it all, Zaradine found herself stealing glances at Marcus. He participated in the conversations with quiet intelligence, offering insights that showed he understood both the political and military implications of their union. But there's something else about him, something she couldn't quite identify. He seemed so calm, so ordinary, and yet there was an undercurrent of something deeper. During the reception dinner, Marcus sat beside her, and she found herself surprised by his knowledge of Veltar culture. He had clearly studied their customs and spoke with genuine curiosity about her homeworld. "I understand your people can see in multiple spectrums simultaneously," he said, cutting his food with precise movements. "That must give you a completely different perspective on the universe." "It does," Zaradine admitted, finding herself relaxing for the first time since boarding the human station. "Though I imagine your species has its own unique advantages." Marcus smiled, and something in that expression made her pulse quicken in a way that surprised her. "We humans tend to be adaptable. Sometimes that's enough." As the evening progressed, Zaradine found herself increasingly intrigued by this quiet human who would soon be her husband. He seemed so harmless, so gentle, with his soft voice and careful mannerisms. There was nothing threatening about him, nothing that suggested the warrior background in his file. Perhaps this arrangement wouldn't be as disappointing as she had feared. Marcus Chun might be ordinary by human standards, but there was something about him that made her feel curious rather than resigned about their future together. She had no idea that behind those warm brown eyes lay depths that would soon reshape her understanding of what it meant to be human.